banned from dozens and dozens of payment processors. We were banned from dozens of cloud hosting providers. And, by the grace of God, we were able to rebuild everything from scratch. The problem is that we weren't Twitter's size, right? Like we weren't a multi-billion-dollar corporation with 300 million active users at the time. We were much smaller, so it was a lot easier for us to sort of build back and bounce back. Go ahead, Chase. I see your hands up.
Yeah, well, it's a really important discussion because what you guys have done with Gab. I don't know if you recall when you and I spoke like last summer, but I asked you about the sovereignty that Gab actually has, and you told me about how you saw what happened to Parler, you saw what happened to these other social media sites getting yanked from the internet because of quote unquote hate speech or whatever's on the platforms. And you explained to me how you guys built out your own servers. You guys had full control of your own infrastructure. Obviously, because you're not on the App Store, nobody can yank you off of it. And you guys designed a web app that functions natively like an actual app on the
Right.
iPhone when people add it to their home screen. And that's the smartest way to go about actually preserving free speech on a platform, because what I see with Elon right now is, that's crazy that he lost 150 mil in ad revenue in the past month. I assume since Kanye made his statements, was that when it started?
I don't know if that was a part of it or if that came right after, but it just seems that, and this is typically how the ADL operates too, is they'll draw you in and think that like you're making a deal with them, and then they'll knife you in the back, right? And that's sort of what happened. Is like he met with them, and then tweeted and like sort of virtue signaled that he had a meeting with them, sort of to show good faith, to the public that, hey, look, I'm meeting with these civil rights leaders, blah blah blah, and then it was like literally 48 hours later that the ADL was tweeting that it wasn't enough and that they were calling advertisers to boycott. And so that's sort of how they operate. And I apologize everybody for my voice. I'm just getting over being sick. But to hit on your point a little bit there of us building our own infrastructure. Yeah, so we got banned from everything back in 2018. App stores, hosting providers, email services, payment processors, all of it. And so we spent the last couple of years building up our own infrastructure. So we have physical servers that we own, that we maintain, that we control in physical data centers. We have our own email services. We have our own payment processor, Gab Pay, which is basically our own PayPal. We built it all. We're not dependent on the app stores. We built a progressive web app. It's called a PWA. So you can add it to your home screen and it opens up and functions just like a native app would. We found ways around all of the deplatforming and sort of built back up from ash to, a site that is visited by 21 million people a month. So, it is possible to do. But again, Elon's not in the situation that we are in, or we were in at the time. We were much smaller. We had maybe, a million, 2 million people tops at the time visiting the site, which is, it's a decent amount, but it's not 300 million. It's not, it's not people all over the world. So, if they go down, and he just fired, or a lot of people quit too, you have like 90% of the company that's now gone. Something breaks and there's like one dude who is responsible for that thing and only he knows how it works. And so now that one thing breaks and it breaks the whole site, and you're scrambling to figure out who's responsible for that one thing, and how do we get it fixed, and where is this guy, and will he even respond to our calls because we just fired him or he just quit because he doesn't like Elon. So like those type of situations can unfold in the coming days and weeks. And we're going to see probably more advertisers pull out. We saw CBS News today announce that they're not going to be using Twitter anymore. We may see other major media outlets do the same, which would actually be good for the platform. But I digress. We may see more advertisers pull out. We may see them lose cloud hosting services. We may see them lose just core infrastructure. So Twitter, as such a big platform, they rely on a lot of third-party tools and services. So we may see one of those third-party services pull out to sort of make a woke statement and virtue signal, right? Like it could be something that they depend on to keep up their back end or to monitor their back end or whatever. There's so many different things that could unfold here in the coming weeks. So it's literally like a war zone. It's going to be certainly interesting. But yeah, Chase, anything else on your end?
Yeah, I mean, I just like Elon's in such a funny spot right now because he's walking this line between like keeping the company profitable while also allegedly trying to preserve free speech, while also not trying to get the app yanked from the app store because of too much quote unquote hate speech or whatever.
Right.
And he's trying to please like a million different people, but it's not possible to please all these different people. And I thought, Alex Jones, he actually responded to Elon's tweet where
I
somebody
saw
asked
that.
if yeah, someone asked if he would be bringing Alex Jones back, and Elon just flatly responded no. And Alex was like, "Look, I get it. Like he's in a tight spot right now. He's basically trying to make everybody happy, and he's doing what he needs to keep the whole thing afloat at the moment." And if he brought Alex Jones immediately back onto the platform, that could get him yanked from the App Store. That
Sure.
could get a ton of advertisers to pull out. But ultimately, Elon is his masters are the people that are putting advertising revenue towards the platform and the people that run the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. I mean, those are truly his masters. He's not going to
Correct.
decide what free speech is. The people who allow his platform to be on their platforms decide what free speech is, which is why your model is so brilliant. And you can't really, when you have people like the ADL who are saying that any criticism of Jewish power in the world is anti-Semitism and hate speech and stuff, and these people wield an extraordinary amount of influence in the business world, and they can convince hundreds of millions of dollars worth of advertising revenue, the people that are funding that, they can convince them to pull out in an instant. He's in a tight spot. I think Jonathan Greenblatt's comments though about Trump, I think they're really interesting because I don't know if you saw like 6 days ago, Trump was awarded the Theodore Herzl Award
I
from the
did. Yeah.
yeah from the Zionist Organization of America for being like the like best friend of Israel that America's ever had or
Yeah.
something like
Best
that.
Jewish president ever. Right.
Yeah, and I'm like, dude, like how I don't get maybe you can explain it to me. I don't get Greenblatt's position because it's like you've got all of these Zionists that absolutely love Trump and say that he's the best thing to ever happen to Israel since Theodore Herzl basically. And then you've got Greenblatt saying that he's like leading this Nazi charge or something like that. Like what
Well,
how did
yeah. Not only that. You see 70%, 80% of Jews vote for Democrat and didn't vote for Trump, right? So and Trump 100% did more for Israel and did more for the Jewish community than any president ever, right? And he did this sort of to try to appease them. And what he learned is that you're you're not going to appease them, right? There's no way. So that's why you don't play their game, and I don't play their game. So, he learned the hard way that it doesn't matter how much you give and how much you bend the knee, and how many favors you do, you're not going to win them over, right? So, hopefully, he learned that lesson for 24, but I highly doubt it. I mean, we see Jared Kushner was at his announcement. So he's still behind the scenes. Kanye talks about handlers. Well, that's who Trump's handler is, right? It's Kushner, and I learned that firsthand when Trump's team approached me about him getting on Gab, and one of the first things they said is, "Well, you have to do something about the anti-Semitism on Gab. You're going to have to remove that." And I said, "Like, do you know what Gab is? Like, Gab is the whole point of Gab existing is free speech." Right. So criticism of Jews, criticism of Israel, criticism of even Trump is allowed. Right. Criticism of me as the founder is allowed. Right. That's what free speech is. And they
your
weren't
your
having that.
guys's your guys's policy is based on the First Amendment, correct? It's basically all
Yes.
speech goes as long as it doesn't lead towards violence or it's not calling for violence, something
Right. As
like
long
that.
as you're not, well, first of all, we ban porn, right? We ban porn, we ban doxing. So that's, posting someone's personal information without their consent, their credit card, their address, etc. And then, yeah, threats of violence. But other than that, I mean, if you have a political opinion that isn't breaking the First Amendment, isn't breaking U.S. law, it's allowed, And we deal with foreign governments all the time. We've had Germany reach out. Actually, I probably cannot go to Germany ever in my life because right now they have like a $30,000 fine on my head because we
Oh
refuse.
man.
Yeah, well, we refuse to comply with their hate speech rules and to remove content that they want removed. And we've dealt with the same exact thing from the UK, from Brazil, I think from Canada. We deal with foreign governments all the time, and they reach out, and we're just like, "Sorry, this isn't a violation of our terms of service. Can't help you." And it's really funny. Our lawyer, basically tells them to f off in lawyer speak, which is really funny. Some of those I've leaked
Based.
some of those responses I've leaked before, but they're really funny. But yeah, we deal with international governments. We've even dealt with Congress. I mean, Congress has come after us and sort of tried to intimidate me multiple times, and sent us letters and sent us demands for information and stuff to sort of try and intimidate us with the J6 committee and other things. But we responded in kind with that and basically said the same thing. Like, here's our policies. Our policies are very transparent. They were asking us for like, what's your internal, guidebooks, that your moderators have for removing content or whatever. And we just pointed to our terms of service because that's what it is. It's like, the public, we don't have any like secret guidebooks behind the scenes that we don't show the public. Like, our terms of service that is public is our terms of service. And it actually makes moderating really easy because it's so clear cut what is allowed and what isn't. There's no ambiguity of things like hate speech or any of this nonsense. So it's really easy for us to moderate. And then the other reason it's easy is because most of our moderation happens at the user level. So it's users blocking or muting, or we have groups and the users moderate those, so they decide what goes in the group and what doesn't, or what's allowed to be posted. I mean, if you have like a cat group and someone's in there posting dogs, well, you're probably going to ban them from the group. And that doesn't mean that they're banned from the site, but they're just not going to be able to post in that group, or maybe you remove their posts if you're a mod of that group. But that's not us. I mean, that's users that are controlling that. So most of the moderation that happens on Gab is being done by users. So it's sort of decentralized moderation, and it works really, really well. And it makes our job easier too because we don't have to worry about it, and it makes everything really transparent and easy when everybody knows what the rules are. When everybody knows where the line in the sand is, people are generally not going to cross that line. Now we'll have people that come over and they'll create a brand new account and threaten to kill people and whatnot, and it's sort of we call it Fed posting, right? It's sort of obvious what they're doing, and so we'll take action on stuff like that. But other than that, man, I mean, most people, when you give them the rules, when you give them the line in the sand, it's a lot easier to know where that line is and then therefore not cross it, which is like, don't threaten to kill people. Don't post porn. Like, how hard is that, right? It's these things are common sense for 99.9% of people. And it works. So that's what works for
Yeah,
us.
and it's fantastic too, man. One of the things that I see happening in the years ahead, I think geopolitical turmoil and civil unrest will increase in the years ahead, just because the fundamentals of our global economy are kind of falling apart, and I think a lot of people are going to be expressing a lot of anger and frustration, and they're going to be sharing thoughts that are, might end up considered thought crimes in the eyes of, the authorities, like we saw with COVID. If you were questioning the vaccines on Instagram or Twitter, they would shadow ban you or they would shut down your speech. But this was like, these were really important discussions that were happening, and I think so many people have awakened to the fact that you don't have true free speech, and we won't have true free speech on Twitter because they're saying you won't have freedom of reach, right? Like like you were saying, like they'll let you post something, but they'll just shadow ban you into oblivion so nobody can see it. And in the years ahead, I see the Overton window for what is allowed to be said online. I can see that shrinking if governments try to clamp down on thought crimes and stuff.
Right, right.
And I see Gab, dude, as like, dude, it's honestly so encouraging what you're doing with the platform, because it's like the lifeboat of free
It's
speech.
the
It's like
arc.
the life
Yeah,
raft. Yeah,
yeah, dude. It's the
straight
arc. Yep.
straight up. And I in the years ahead, I could see millions more people flocking to it if civil unrest and the noticing, right, the hashtag
Right.
the noticing
Right.
continues to increase, there's a lot of truth that's getting spread right now. And I think a lot of the most powerful and influential people in the world will try to clamp down on it. So I over time, I can foresee a lot of people migrating to your platform. And I guess one of the things I'm curious if you've heard more about, that there's a lot of Bitcoiners, especially on Twitter, that are concerned about this. There's been rumors that Elon Musk is going to move towards some sort of like
KYC.
identification system.
Yeah.
Yeah, to
Yep.
use the platform. Have
Yep.
you heard anything else about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, he said as he was thinking about purchasing it that all humans would be authenticated, right? And what does that mean? It means you're going to go through some sort of KYC tunnel, and that's sort of what he has his head fixed on is if we get everybody through KYC and we know who everybody is, then that will stop the bot problem and that will stop the sort of hate speech problem and the harassment problem because you're much less likely to say something hateful if Twitter has your ID, right? So and then we see Jordan Peterson come out and sort of parrot this. He got reinstated yesterday, and the first thing he posts is demanding Elon Musk to get rid of all anonymous demon trolls, as he called them, right? So, and this is going right with the WEF's, the World Economic Forum's, digital ID, vision to sort of make sure that we have a digital ID on everybody so that we can give everybody a social credit score and track everything that they're doing on the internet attached to their name. So they want to eliminate internet anonymity because that's where the truth comes from, man. I mean, if and again, I apologize to everybody. I'm still sick here, so my voice isn't the best.
You're
But
good, bro.
that's where the truth is. Like if you look at the comment sections on, under even Jordan Peterson's post the other day, right? Like all of the most based, like funny memes and like just truth telling memes and posts and content comes from comes from anonymous people. So if you are shadow banned into oblivion, if you haven't gone through KYC and sent Twitter your ID, or if you're saying something that's quote unquote hateful, and you just get buried and no one sees it, that's where all the best stuff is going to be. So it's only going to be sort of this fake plastic, corporatist experience, and that's going to drive people away. That's not what people want. We live in such a fake and plastic material world. People thrive for authenticity. Even when people come over to Gab, and they see, even some of the more edgy stuff, right, that may be off-putting to some people. It's still refreshing because it's like it's real. It's like it's funny to some people. To some people, it's offensive, whatever. But at least it's like that's a real human being. It's not just this fake corporate, nonsense, polished, perfect message, which is what we see all day long, everywhere, across every medium. It's just a real human being, right? And so people are looking for authenticity, and of course, they're looking for truth. And the truth tellers tend to be anonymous because telling the truth in this day and age is incredibly risky. So if he eliminates that, that's going to destroy the platform. If you get rid of anons, or if you make sort of this two-tiered system, um, where people who dox themselves sort of have a higher priority than those who don't. And, people who don't say quote unquote hateful things, which is totally subjective and ambiguous. Well, who's going to decide what's hateful? Well, the ADL, right? And that's what it's going to be. So, but go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean it's a really you hit the nail on the head. And it's a really important discussion because like you said, the anons, the people who are free to say what they really think without getting fired from their jobs or having massive social consequences in their lives around them, that is where so much of the value is at in the online discourse. And as the people on the left and our enemies continue to try and make almost any kind of speech that criticizes their agenda classified as hate speech, like if your ability to speak freely becomes compromised by some sort of digital ID system that's connected to your social credit score and your social media accounts and stuff like that. I mean, it would completely break the freedom of discourse on the internet. And like, have you guys, like, looking forward, like, I assume you would commit to, like, obviously not KYCing your users and stuff in the future if they
Oh,
kind of
of
push
course
that
not.
stuff on us.
Yeah, no, of course not. I mean, I selfishly, I hope that they do because we will explode. Gab will be the one place that you could actually have an anonymous voice on the internet. So selfishly, I hope that they do go down this path because I know what will happen. It will destroy the platform, and people will look for another place where they could speak their mind anonymously without having to, send in their ID card or connect their credit card or whatever it may be, to dox themselves and threaten their livelihood and their career and their family safety for having an opinion on the internet. So, no, absolutely. We're always going to have anonymous accounts. We're never going to KYC. So I have no problem saying that. And truthfully, I hope that they don't do that. It would be very, very bad for society. It would be bad for the internet. But on the other hand, it would be great for Gab. So, um, either way is sort of a good outcome from my perspective. But that's sort of where all these people are pushing now is for digital identity. I don't think it's a coincidence that we see Jordan Peterson come back, and his inaugural post is pushing Elon to do, get rid of the demon trolls and anonymity on the platform.
Yeah, no, it doesn't seem like a coincidence. And Klaus Schwab he's been very explicit with this, and we all know how he's got his puppets all across the world in government cabinets and probably influencing a lot of celebrities too. And his whole thing, his thesis is that we're moving towards a more angry world, right? Where, like, people are fed up with everything that's going on, and in order to contain that anger, they want to move us towards those digital IDs and the consequences for our speech online. And
Right.
honestly, dude, it's such a relief that, like, one company is fully committed to actually preserving the freedom of our speech, man. Like, it's the biggest relief because I'm like, dude, like, as long as Gab is up and running and, like, Torba still isn't bending the knee, dude, like, that torch of freedom is still burning, and it's legit, man. So, thank you for not bending the knee, dude.
Hey man, this is my life's work. All glory to God. This is what I was born for, man. This is why I'm on this earth is to do this. I'm more sure of that now than I ever have been. And we're just getting started. It's such an exciting time right now for us here. We have so many things in the pipeline. With Gab Pay, which is our payment processor, we're going to be deeply integrating that into Gab Social soon. For things like tipping and subscription services and all the different ways that you can sort of monetize. So that'll be huge for creators. That'll be huge for the platform and for this concept of a parallel economy. We can integrate it into the marketplace, and people are finding jobs on Gab. People are starting businesses and growing businesses on Gab. And I've seen so many families that have in the past year since we sort of really went all in on this concept of building a parallel economy on Gab. I've seen so many families that have started a business and grown their businesses, and some have been able to leave sort of their full-time corporate job and do this full time. And that's such a tremendous blessing, like to be able to impact a family like that and to give them freedom from the slave system is huge. And I think we're seeing, especially with this last election and the last two elections really, is that the country is starting to balkanize. Red states are getting redder and blue states are getting bluer, and people are moving to places with other people who share their values, on both sides, and so we have this divided country. And what's really happening is we have states becoming nations. I mean, that's sort of how the founders intended it in the first place. They didn't intend for the federal government to be as big as it is today. So I think the way out of this is sort of a balkanization in the 50 states, where if you have a value system, you can move to a state that sort of has people and policies and laws, and government that implements that value system. And I think there's clearly this dichotomy right now of these two worldviews, and there's the biblical worldview and there's the globalist worldview, and it's a satanic worldview. And people are going to go to the areas and the states and the places that uphold both of those worldviews. And obviously, coming from, as a Christian, coming from the biblical worldview, I think that the globalist worldview is going to collapse on itself. We see it all across society. Every fabric of this country's infrastructure and of business and healthcare and everything else that like Trump has said, right? Everything woke goes to shit. Well, that's a good metaphor for what's happening. Is you get all of the best people. I've been talking about this too. It's not just like you go out to a restaurant, right? And service is horrible, and they get your order wrong, and the food is cold, right? And it's just like it's really hard to find people that care, not just at like that level, not just like a restaurant, but like even like the professional class, right? The quote unquote blue collar jobs, right? Like I deal with like lawyers and accountants and quote unquote professionals that I have to like pull their teeth to get stuff done or to do stuff the right way.
It's
And it's
so
just like
true.
it's everywhere. It's like it's across all of society. And you go out to eat and they get your order wrong and the food is garbage and whatever. And we used to have a country that had sort of this Christian work ethic where it didn't matter what your job was, whether you were a line cook or whether you were a lawyer or whatever, or a small business owner, you were doing your work for the glory of God. And we don't have that anymore. People are working for a paycheck or they're working to get by. They don't care about what they're doing. They don't care about their work. They do it half-assed or not at all, and that ripples throughout all of society. And that's why things are crumbling right now. It's all sort of connected back to the fact that we lost. We walked this country, walked away from God, and we slaughtered 40 million babies. And I think that God is sort of righteously judging our nation right now, and we deserve it. And I think that the way out is we're going to have to build. We're going to have to start from scratch and just rebuild. And that's what I've been doing, and that's what I'm going to continue to do. And I think it starts in the home, right? So we got to build up our families. Get our kids out of the pagan school systems. Stop watching pagan and sort of globalist conquered entertainment, which is totally designed to demoralize you, and build our own. Build
Absolutely.
our own social networks, our own entertainment, our own news, our own healthcare, our own states. That's where we're going.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, I
I
actually want, if we can for a moment, I'd like to hone in on that because I've got some friends in the room, and just to explain the context of why I've become so fascinated by Gab in the past year. When you so when I talked with you about the sovereignty of your company and if you were building it to withstand attacks from the influential and powerful people in our country, I was impressed by how you had built it, and then I was really impressed by the parallel economy fund that you had created. So, for my friends in the room, one of the things that Andrew Torba is doing with Gab is they're working on creating a parallel economy where people can connect with local businesses, local tradesmen, so on and so forth, and we can essentially build an economy that's separate from this increasingly more and more controlled and cancelable economy that the globalists are creating, right? And one of the reasons why I care about this is because, when COVID started and they were talking about the vaccination passports, and then the rhetoric came out about the central bank digital currencies and the digital IDs and all that stuff, I was like, okay, I see where this is going. They want to create a system where they've got control over your bank account, and if you step out of line they can shut you down in an instant, and they're the ones who determine what stepping out of line would mean, right? Like, it could be just posting something, like we've said, quote unquote hateful on social media, then boom, your account gets shut
well,
down.
I mean, just on that note, I mean, we have been banned from 6 or 7 different banks at this point. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier. Like,
It's
we
crazy.
people get so concerned, like, oh, I lost my Twitter account. It's like, bro, I've been banned from banks. Okay, I've been banned from PayPal. I've been banned from Visa, Mastercard. hosting providers, app stores, you name it. I think it's like 30 some different services I counted one day.
That's so
And
crazy.
it's across every level of infrastructure. And like, again, by the grace of God, we've been able to rebuild all of it. Everything that we need to exist on the internet and to engage in commerce and all that stuff, we've been able to build. And now, so what we're doing now is saying, okay, we want to give these tools now to other people. So we want businesses using Gab Pay to do merchant processing. We want our users to use Gab Pay to, monetize their content or to grow their business or whatever. So, the parallel economy is not just, localism is obviously good, and that's something I'm encouraging. Like I'm doing the parallel economy even in my local hometown, right? So I'm going out of my way. My wife and I go out of our way to go and like find local farmers and local businesses and small chains and small restaurants to support. And I think everybody should be doing that because you're supporting your own community, you're supporting your own people around you. But it doesn't necessarily have to be local on Gab. I mean, there's businesses all over the country, all over the world, and families all over the country, all over the world that are supporting those businesses, starting businesses, and just ideally freeing people from the system. I mean, one example is during the vaccine mandates, people were losing their jobs. And so we created this group on Gab, which was called the No Vax Mandate Job Board. And I think there's like 90 to 100,000 people in that group right now. And we had tens of thousands of people that were able to find a job or hire people, through that group over the past year or two. So, that's just one example of sort of sidestepping the system, and sort of you're still operating within the existing system. It's like, we're not creating a black market or anything, but we're connecting people in a way that has sort of shared values. That is sort of outside of the system's control, which is a huge thing going
I mean,
forward.
even just an alternative to PayPal is amazing. I mean, we all saw that like a few weeks ago, they put that stipulation in their terms of service where if you spread quote unquote misinformation online, whatever the hell that even means, they could just bill you $2,500. Just which is like ludicrous. And having just an alternative to that, for example, is amazing. Um, One of the things that you've talked about in the past is you guys were looking at possibly incorporating like Bitcoin and Lightning into your payment systems.
Yep.
Have you guys made any headway on that?
Yep, we're working on that right now. That'll probably be sometime next year. That's a bit more complicated because, as you know, there are KYC requirements and stuff there. So,
Hmm.
if you're gonna, there's sort of no way around that. Like to use Gab, we're not gonna KYC. You could be a non whatever, but if you're gonna use a payment system, there's no way around regulatory, compliance on that front. For operating in the U.S. as a payment processor, we're gonna have to do KYC. There's no way around it, which is
Right.
fine. I mean, most people are not gonna have a problem with that if you're a business, especially. People are used to that. But yeah, we're looking at Bitcoin and integrating that into Gab Pay directly, and so you can have your wallet attached to your Gab Pay account, and you can load that up with either your bank account or a credit or debit card, or you can even pay Bitcoin into that and top off your balance. So there's a lot of stuff that we're looking at that front, but it's very early. We're trying to get the fiat stuff right first because that's what most people know, right? Like you go to grandma and you tell her to sign up for Gab Pay, and she can hook up her Gab account and have some money on there, and then tip, her favorite creator on Gab. Like that's pretty straightforward. If you try and get into like trying to explain Bitcoin to her and all that stuff and the QR codes and the wallet.
You're gonna lose it real quick.
Yeah, yeah. So we're trying to get the fiat stuff right first, and then move into crypto after. But that's sort of the next logical step for Gab Pay once we get all the kinks worked out of the fiat side of things. But
Yeah, no,
right.
that makes sense. I mean, it's all really good because I agree with your thesis that we're moving towards balkanization. Dude, I look at the next 10 years and I'm like, I have no idea how we could stay united as a country with everything that's going on. I totally see like states breaking off, forming their own,
Yep.
economic trade unions, stuff like that. People fleeing to states where there's actual freedom and they have actual sovereignty and stuff. And I think what's cool about what you're building is it's like a lot of the people that would be interested in doing that would also be interested in what you're building over at Gab with the parallel economy and the free speech and stuff. and you kind of it seems to me like you just have this like really strong like freedom network that's growing,
That's
and
right. Yep.
it's awesome, man.
I appreciate that, man. I'm like I said, I'm still sick, so I think I'm gonna bounce. I'm not feeling too hot, running my voice off here. Hopefully, I don't get bronchitis, man. It always every time I get a cold, it like turns into bronchitis, and then I'm sick for like 2 weeks. But I'm gonna hop off.
I,
I
I got
appreciate you
I got
jumping
one
in.
question for you before you go.
Sure.
If you were in Elon's shoes right now with this pressure he's getting from the ADL, and then also, his responsibility to keep the company profitable, what would you do in his shoes?
Oh, I would give them hell. I wouldn't care. You got to cut burn dramatically, right? So lean out the company as much as you possibly can, which it looks like he's doing, and um, and screw it, go to war, double down. I mean, you know me, man. I'm gonna go all in on free speech every time. So he's in sort of a unique position because there's a lot of powerful people that sort of have his business in the palm of their hand, right? The app stores, the cloud hosting providers, the credit card processors, right? So he can. It's really tough, man. I mean, again, we were a lot smaller when it happened to us, so I was able to just say like, screw you guys, like we're not. I'm not going to bend the knee and like go. Warrior mode against the whole system and pay the price for it. I think he's trying to be sort of delicate with it, one toe in, one toe out, and that may actually be the right approach. But it's going to be tough, man. It's going to be a tough road. They're gonna, we're gonna start seeing the deplatforming stuff is probably going to come next. I hate to say it, but that's. I wouldn't be surprised if they get nuked from the app stores, or if they get nuked from payment processors, or cloud hosting providers. Who knows? It's I'm certainly paying attention.
Yeah, me too, man. And it's, if nothing else, dude, it's super entertaining, man. It keeps life interesting. So, hope you feel better, bro. Thanks for bringing me up, and thanks for hosting this, man. It was interesting.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Peace, bro.